Hey everyone, Shane here with eTrailer.com. Today I have a 2021 Coachmen Spirit Ultralight Travel Trailer. I'm going to walk through how to install the 8-foot and 1-inch Solera Slide Topper. This is what our slide topper is going to look like when it's installed. It's going to give you a lot of benefits over top of your slide. For instance, say we go camping, we're going into a spot that has a lot of trees or a lot of leaves. We don't have a slide topper on there. Get any leaves or tree limbs up there, we have to get up and clean it off each time. If we don't, what happens is all that stuff's going to mold, it's going to mildew, slide our box in, all that stuff is going inside the camper, can create issues later on. Another thing, if we don't get up and clean it off, this T-molding here, as it goes against the camper, those leaves get wet, what it's going to do is it's going to pull up and it's going to leave a gap. Water will get down in that gap, it's going to run inside, and eventually it's going to make it inside the camper and cause damage inside that you really don't want to pay for. My opinion, put a slide topper on, save yourself a bunch of money later on down the road. Our fabric is going to be a durable vinyl fabric. It's going to hold up in all weather conditions. These are actually going to extend out longer than most other types of canopies, which means these are going to extend out 50 inches. We have a pretty large box here, which is not typical on a lot of campers nowadays. However, you can see that this canopy is going to cover these bigger boxes. These are going to be available not only in white with matching hardware, matching brackets, but they're also going to be available in black. You can find those here at eTrailer. Now to measure for the correct size canopy, you're going to measure from the outside edge of the T-molding on one side of your box to the outside edge on the other. Go into our fit guide, find that number, that's the size canopy you're going to go with. A couple of things to keep in mind. From the outside edge of your T-molding, you need at least 7 inches of clearance, so make sure there's nothing in that area or on the wall. For instance, I've had some cases where they have a slide box, 2 slide boxes next to each other. The second one is within that 7 inches, or there's not 14 inches in between those two. What you're going to have to do is on one of the 2 boxes, you're going to have to go down one size. Keep in mind, even if you go down one size, your canopy is still going to be inside the T-molding and still covering your box. Other example, if you have a slide box that's on the other side, a lot of times they put canopies out over top your door. And that canopy arm is like right next to it, within a couple inches of it. Again, you're going to have to go down a size. The reason we want to go down a size, if you look how far out, our roller sticks out. If we had 2 boxes next to each other or a canopy rail, that arm would touch the other arm or touch the canopy rail. We want to make sure that doesn't do that because it's going to affect how it rolls out. As far as the installation process, very straightforward, anybody can do it. Now that we've gone over some of the features, walk you through how we got it done. To start your installation, pull everything out of the packaging. You're going to want these brackets here and your extrusion rail if you don't have one installed on your camper. You're also going to want to get some butyl tape. Butyl tape does not come in your kit. You can find it here at eTrailer. We're going to take out butyl tape. We're going to take our 2 brackets like this, turn them over on the back side. And what we want to do is we want to cover these holes with that butyl tape. What I like to do is this edge of this paper, fold it up like this. We'll take our next strip and we're going to butt it right up against that, where it kind of helps turn into one piece and there's not a gap there. We're going to repeat the same thing for the second bracket and then the same thing on our extrusion rail. We're going to take this side, flip it over, and we're going to put that butyl tape from one end to the other, covering all these holes. Next, we're going to take our canopy, the arm, you're going to have a bracket like this with a hole in it. You're going to have the hole in the arm, hole in this bracket, or this rod, like that. Next, you're going to take your canopy. On each arm, there's going to be a hole. You're going to take this rod, there's going to be a hole in it as well. We're going to line those 2 up. You're going to have an end cap with a notch in it. Make sure that notch is facing towards the hole. We're going to have a large Phillips head self-tapper. We don't want to take this self-tapper and drive it in so far that the head breaks off. We don't need to go all the way in, we just need to go in far enough where the cap stays on. Now this part is completely up to you. Once you get it in, you want to take a paint marker. We'll just kind of paint the top of this bolt to match all the rest of the hardware. Throw the paint marker in your cubby hole in your camper, and anytime you get a little nick on any of your painted metal parts, you can use this to kind of cover those up, help keep them from corroding later on. Now in most circumstances, if you have a gutter here, you're probably going to want to take it off. However, in this situation, the way this is sealed to the seal that runs behind our slide top or our slide box, when you go to take this off, you rip that seal, it's most likely going to have to be replaced. So instead of doing that, what we did is this faced up. All I did was bent it flat. We have enough space from here up that we can mount our extrusion rail. From here, we're going to measure up 3 inches and put a mark. We're going to do that here on this end, in the center, and down at the other end. Next, we'll get an extra set of hands. And what I suggest not doing is don't just stick it on the wall. Get it lined up before you ever put it on, because once you stick it on there, it's going to make a mess of the butyl tape if you have to pull it off. You can install this either way, with this down or this on the top side. Whichever way you install it, this needs to be on the line. Once we get it lined up, push it against the wall. The butyl tape will hold the rail in place, and then we can start installing the screws. The hardware we're going to be installing, square head, but it's got a rounded top. The reason we're using butyl tape is as we drive the screw through the hole, the screw threads are grabbing onto the butyl tape and kind of sucking it in the hole. So you're not only sealing around the edge, but you're also sealing inside of the hole. We're going to install these screws from one end of the rail all the way down to the other. Next, we're going to take these brackets, inside of your T-molding. We're going to go up as high as we can go and over as far as we can into the corner. I'm going to make sure that the tapered end is facing down. Once we get it set in place, these are going to take square head bits, but they're going to be flat head. Once you get one side done, you're going to repeat the process with the other bracket on the opposite end. Once we get our hardware in place, at one end of your extrusion rail, it really doesn't matter which side, whichever side is the most open. Right on the end, we're going to take the 2 corners and we're going to bend one down and one up. That way when we go to slide our canopy bead in, those corners don't tear the canopy itself. You can use pliers, you can use flathead screwdriver, anything you can get to bend those corners. Next, we're going to install one of our brackets on one side. You're going to notice there's 4 slots here. That allows us to adjust this bracket up or down depending on the pitch of our canopy once we get it on. Now, if we put it in the lowest one, where it brings the roll down, and we find that it's touching this on as it's out, that means we can take it and we can move it up, and it'll raise it up off of that because we don't want it to touch that. We're going to start with it down. We'll go ahead and slide it on. We'll get an extra set of hands. We'll slide our canopy in, get our rod put into one of these, and then we can slide the other bracket on the other side on the rod and onto that other bracket on the other end. Now with an extra set of hands, we're going to get our canopy put in place. I suggest unrolling it, a half turn or so. We're going to take that bead and we're going to slide it right in that extrusion rail. You want to make sure that your awning arms are facing out. So now at this end, we're going to take this rod, we're going to slide it in this bracket. I want to make sure that this is going straight up and down and not facing out or back. Slide it in like that. And we can get our other one installed at the other end. Next, we're going to install the two Allen head bolts. You want to install it in the two holes where you slid it onto that bracket. What these are going to do, these are going to keep this bracket from sliding on that bracket mounted to the wall. We'll have two for this end and two for the other one. Next, we're going to get our canopy centered on our box. Once we get it centered, we're going to have two self-tappers. We're going to go straight up through these two holes into this rod. That's going to keep our canopy from shifting back and forth. What I suggest is taking this arm and rolling it back so that it's sitting flat. Once you get your two bolts in, you're going to do the same thing at the other end, and then come back and paint them with your paint marker if you choose to do that. Then at each end, this clip right here, we're going to twist our canopy, pair of pliers, and we're going to slide that out. I suggest holding on to these, because if you ever need to get up here and do any work, all you do is twist this and you can shove it back in, and it keeps the spring from unrolling on you. Now that we've got everything tightened, we've pulled our clips out of the end of our roller. We're going to go ahead and slide our box out and in a couple times. That'll allow the canopy to adjust inside that extrusion rail a little bit. Next, we're going to have a little small black self-tapper, actually two of them. You're going to go in about 1 inch to 1.5 inches from the end on each side. You're going to go right through the extrusion rail, and it's going to go through that bead. That's going to keep our awning from sliding inside of that rail. You can go from the top or the bottom. I like to go from the bottom, kind of keeps it out of the weather, keeps it from rusting. Once you have all your hardware installed, you're going to repeat the process for any remaining slide topper you're installing. It's going to do it for a look at and installation on the Solera 8-foot 1-inch slide topper on a 2021 Coachmen Spirit ultralight travel trailer.